I just recently bought some film, you know, a 100-foot roll of Tri-X 400 because it's been a while since I shot any Tri-X, and it's a film that I really grew up on. It was the film that it was Tri-X and HP5. I would go back and forth. Sometimes you could find Tri-X for 50 cents less, and sometimes you could find HP5 for 50 cents less. So I'd buy whichever one was cheaper. And when I was at the University of Minnesota and I was doing my first, learning, college photography classes, they bulk rolled Tri-X and Plus X. And so I would always go for the Tri-X. I like the grain. I've always liked the grain. So here's kind of what I want to talk to you guys about. Now, I want to, before I do that, I want to really explain that on this question, I am all over the place. I haven't asked it yet, but I will shoot. I love cheap film. So ultrafine 400, ultrafine 100. I love those films. They're good films. They look good to me. And they're cheap. So I buy that quite a bit. But I want to know really what film stock, what film is it that you guys really gravitate towards? Do you have a go-to? I mean, do you have like a stock of film that you are saving? And I'll tell you about a stock of film that I have. Back about 3.5 years ago, just after they discontinued Acros, I bought 4 100-foot cans of what was it? It was Arista, not Arista. It was Freestyle's brand of Acros, and I can't remember what it is right now. It's for some reason Legacy Pro. That's what it was. Legacy Pro 100. And then I also got a couple of reels of a Legacy Pro 400, which is like 400 speed neopan. And I hoard those right now. I still have some of it in the freezer unrolled, or in bulk roll. And it's like I'm husbanding this resource. And because neopan 2 at $15 a roll is probably not going to serve me anywhere near as well as this frozen stuff that I have. So that's probably maybe the most premium that I have. But I want to know, what film stocks do you guys gravitate towards? And what is it? Is there anything that is discontinued that you would love to see brought back? Nick, why don't you hit this first? I know you talked with the Classic Lenses guys about pairing lenses with film, but and it can be different situations. Large format, you like this, all that.
So ever since I started back into analog, so I spent years shooting slide film because it was what I had to do for my work, and it was also kind of what you did back then. Like even when I was traveling, right, slides were the thing. Like it was 35 millimeter. You wanted the best quality, and then you wanted to show a slideshow later. So it was the technology that I used for years. But after 10 years of digitally taking pictures, when I went back to film and suddenly was scanning it and dealing with it as a digital product to process, I fell in love with color print film. And so that's really almost all I shoot. I've shot a little black and white, but a few slides here and there, but it's color print film that I'm focused on. And the reason is because, I have a full darkroom in my computer, so I can really get the color and the high resolution, get all that stuff out of the film. And in the past, when I just got, drugstore prints, I missed all that. I didn't understand like what the film was even for. It just seemed like a waste of time. And now it's my favorite. And it's because it has a really wide dynamic range, really interesting color possibilities. And now that I can get, you know, the resolution out of it by scanning it.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, and I love color. It's funny. I like black and white. It just seems that I'm interested in this sort of collision between, you know, my own like inability to control what's going to happen and the fact that the film is sort of getting all the information that's there as best it can. And I just like struggling with that. I really like color images. I think maybe it's because I kind of still react to photography as if I was still a painter, as if I was still trying to make this very rich, vivid rendering of the way the world is and the way it, you know, the way I feel about it. And to me, that's just always this color. So
Mm-hmm.
I constantly kind of ping pong back and forth between different films. I'll get, you know, go on a kick with it. And one of the things is that where I live, that the seasonal changes are really dramatic. Like the lighting changes several times a year, a lot. And so it's not really possible to just use one film stock in all through the year. It's constantly changing. So the ones I keep coming back to are Fuji Pro 400H, Portra 160, Ektar 100. Those are like my mainstays. Now there are others I've really enjoyed, and you know, the other one is sometimes get great results out of Fuji Superia, which is the drugstore Fuji film. But the fact is that it's inconsistent, or at least the way I use it, it's inconsistent. And I never know quite what to expect. And I do like to have some certainty that I'm going to at least enjoy the results. So I tend to go with the better quality films, even if they're a little more expensive. And I'll buy them in bulk, you know, through the mail, and not 100-foot rolls, but, you know, pro bricks of 5 from inexpensive sources. And so those are the films I keep coming back to. And part of it is that I keep everything, all my images are like filed by what they are, what kind of film I used and all that. And I'll go back and look and see, well, what worked for me a lot. And I'll keep coming back to those 3 primary ones. I like Portrait 400, but I've also, sometimes it's just too candy coated and too hot, too warm and too friendly, and, you know, too much not the lighting that we have here. So
yeah, I haven't shot much Portra 400. I do believe that the perfect color film is Portra 160. I think that is a perfect film.
It is, and that's sometimes doesn't work because sometimes I want something a little stranger, but it is a beautiful film. I really agree. The other one is, I've hardly ever gotten to use it because it's expensive and hard to find, but there's a Fuji 160, a Pro 160 that's also really good. But it's expensive and hard to find. So
there are some 100-foot rolls that are popping up on eBay every once in a while, but they're about $150.
Yeah.
And I really, that's probably worth it, right? If you put it on a per roll comparison against Portra 160, I think it probably, and especially if it's been freezer kept. I've had some things that are we've told it's freezer kept, but, you know, if freezer might be relative. If it's frozen half the year in a Bulgarian warehouse and it's, you know, 800 degrees in that same Bulgarian warehouse the other half of the year, they can say it's been frozen for at least half the time I've owned it. I've had some of that. And you know what I do with all that burned film? I shoot it in pinhole cameras. It works very well in pinhole cameras. One of the things I was going to say about color print film, what I've been shooting a lot of, because once again, I bought, I think I bought 30 rolls. No, it was more than that. Yeah, 10 3-packs, maybe it was 10 4-packs of Fuji 200, you know, drugstore film. And I have that in my freezer. I've been shooting that for about 2 years, and there's nothing wrong with that film at all. That is
it's great.
Competent film.
Yep.
So it's nothing, you know, to write home about with its speed or its grain. It's just, it'll render what you see, which is good. Ethan, what do you think about film stocks? Do you have a preference, or are you cost or are you going to tell us that your favorite film stock is multigrade 4?
I do like shooting paper, so I can say I'm a garbage can in at least 4 languages when referring to. Do you eat something? Yes, I eat it. Whatever it is, I'm on a high everything diet, and I kind of feel
You're
like
on a seafood diet. You seafood, you eat it. Yeah.
I feel the same way about film. For many years, when I was buying out camera stores, if I bought all of your cameras or your film cameras, probably you would sell me your fridge full of film cheap, and I shot it all. But I have some favorites. I don't really hoard film so much because fresh film is usually better than even my favorite emulsion that's old. I have some Tri-X 50 or T-Max. Yeah, Tri-X 50 that's like, unrefrigerated from 20, 30 years ago.
I have some
good.
GAF slash I forget what the other brand is because it changed brands, but Hypan that at one point was, it was an off-brand of Tri-X that I shoot at about 25 or 50. Because it sat in somebody's basement, and a bunch of people bought it all at the same time, including Matt from Box of Cameras. So, in fact, I knew him from shooting that before either of us were doing podcasts.
So I do have about 20 rolls of the old Fuji Acros that I bought when it was discontinued, and I thought, well, I'd like to at least try this stuff. I've always wanted to try it, and so it's sitting in the fridge. I finally shot 3 rolls. It's 120. And I really liked the results, which I didn't expect because it's sort of like the slide film of print film. It's got a really strong, it covers a wide range, but everything's either black or white. Like they're very little mid-tone. It does. Yeah. The mid-tones are like almost fugitive, and the black's really, really dark. And but sometimes that's great. And I was shooting sort of a familiar environment, and I got back all these unfamiliar images, and that was really fun. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why pinhole users like Acros is because, well, one, it has no reciprocity curve. But the other one is, to me, one of the problems with pinhole is you get really low contrast in a lot of situations, and that just cranks that contrast up, and so you get just straight scan is pretty solid.
And I think the secret sauce of that film is that it gives you very high contrast without being harsh. Like somehow there's like a fall off into the shadows. It's like passing out, Right. It says you don't quite know how it happened or when it happened, but it's dark now over here in this part of the picture.
Shooting Acros is kind of like getting a good nod on, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So what do you guys say? You want to start the Homemade Camera podcast and the YouTube video extravaganza show?
I didn't tell you what my favorite film is.
Well, you had an option.
Okay, so let's start the podcast.
No, let's not start.
Let's do it. Who cares what my favorite film is?
Tell us what your favorite film is.
I really like Portra 160.
Yeah.
I like T-Max 100 in T-Max RS Developer. I also like Tri-X 400 or HP5, like for grainier, darker stuff.
And
there's a reason.
It's not a surprise.
There's a reason certain films are popular. They just are good. Yeah.
Grew up with them.
Right. And Double X. That's another thing.
Not for me.
I'd love to get another 100-foot roll of that.
So I've decided to give myself a jolt and shoot totally the exact opposite of what I just said. This is another thing that I like to do now and again. So I bought a bunch of Velvia 100, and someone gave me a very large quantity of large format Velvia that I'm like gearing up to just shoot. And I think I might shoot it in the dark of winter to make it even more ridiculous.
When I was in high school, I was super into Velvia 50. That's like all we had. in terms of Velvia. And I love that it would just make everything just crazy colors, like so saturated. But as I have gotten older, I've wanted things to look a little bit more real and not everything be on an acid trip all the time.
But well, I'm forcing myself to go there this winter.
Yeah, but I mean, that Velvia in the winter is going to give you some browns that are going to just knock your socks off. So that's
if it's dark enough, if things are all going monochrome, it doesn't hurt to amp up the color a little bit.
Okay. Start. Are you guys ready to start?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We're
sure.
Okay, for you folks looking and watching on YouTube, what you're looking at is a lens. Now, this lens is made out of a paper towel tube and 2 achromat lenses that I got from Surplus Shed. So it's surplusshed.com. That's where I got them. And essentially, these are just experiments. I bought 3 pairs of lenses. I bought a 138, that's what we're looking at here, a pair of 138 millimeter lenses, a pair of, I think, 175s, and a pair of 250 lenses. And what it was all about is, if you guys listened to the large format photography podcast, the LFPP, in the last month, you guys are actually, I guess it would be a couple months ago by the time this thing comes out, but you heard Eric Matthey, and Eric Matthey is somebody who makes his own lenses, and he refers to them as dollar bill lenses, because early ones, he just, in order to make a barrel, he got these, 2 lens elements. In order to make a barrel, he rolled them in a dollar bill. So he talked a little bit about having a formula, and the formula will be in the show notes. A formula of how to figure out what, if you put 2 achromat lenses together, one in the front, one in the back, how far you have to space them apart to get a focal length that you want, and then how far your back focal distance is. Now, back focal distance is somewhat like, okay, so here's the back of that. So the back of the front element, or the back of the back element, is about here. And so these are actually, I think, 10 millimeters apart, the 2 elements. So there's an element up here, there's an element down there. There's the back of the last one. The back focal distance is like what we would call the flange focal distance, but it's actually measured from the back of the glass of the second lens. So it's a formula to figure out, okay, so I bought some lenses to put on my Graflex RB camera. I mean, that's what the original idea was for these lenses, but I didn't do the formulas right. And I was just kind of flailing around, trying to figure out how to change one setting to make the other setting do this, and, all that type of thing. So I just decided to buy a couple of sets of lenses and use them back and forth, and then plug them into the formula and see whether I had the formula figured out right. And the good thing is, I do have the formula figured out correctly. So I have this lens. This is, and I'm going to have to bring up my spreadsheet. I did a spreadsheet with the formula, so I can dump in values and get values out so I can see whether or not they're useful. And as opposed to doing the math for each one. And you make one adjustment, like the distance between these 2 lenses that changes both your focal distance of the lens and the focal length of the lens, and it changes the back focal distance. Okay. So those two things get changed, but it's not linear. It's not like if you add 10 millimeters here, it's going to come out and change it by 40% there. It's kind of oscillates. Okay. Because of the formula. At least that's what I can tell. I am not a mathematician. I'm not even good at math, but, and in fact, I sent the formula to Ethan to have him check it out to make sure whether or not I got it correct. And he never got back with me.
I got busy and missed it, but I do have this sheet from calculating bellows dimensions from way back when.
Okay. So so that's oh God. Yeah, exactly. But so what the deal is I'm going to put on our website a spreadsheet that will allow you to just pump numbers in, and you're going to be able to get it out. So it's just going to be an Excel. So you have to own Excel or something that'll take an Excel file.
Put it on Google Docs, Graham.
I'll put it on Google Docs and have it free for anybody to download. That sounds good. And it'll be in the show notes. So the whole point is, so I've got this one. Then I've got another one, and I actually wrote on the side of this one. This is a 105 millimeter lens, and it has a 70 millimeter back focal distance. So, I think this might have slipped because they're not real. Oh, no, that's perfect. So you can really see that. And if I move it in and out away from the camera, it's the camera's focal focus on there. But you can see, you can get some really decent, sharp images out of these. Now I have to figure out what barrel I'm going to do. And I'm going to drop a Waterhouse stop in the middle of these.
Dude, man, you have a 3D printer.
I have a 3D printer. I just haven't designed these. These came on Tuesday, and I started messing around with them on Wednesday, and we are recording on Friday. So that's how new they are. And this material, by the way, the focal material on this is just some plastic that's frosted plastic that came with an iPad or an iPhone case that I got. So
okay, so for the listeners that can't see the images, Graham is holding up to his camera a cardboard tube with two glass lenses inside it, spaced apart, and at the proper focus distance behind those lenses, there is a piece of frosted semi-transparent plastic stuck on the end of the tube to act as a ground glass. And so he can just point it, and it's like a little telescope, and you can see it, but you can see the image projected on that frosted plastic at the back.
It's kind of like a lensed camera obscura, is what we're looking at here. And if you look, it's upside down. And then I have another one. I don't think that this one may or may not. Oh yeah, that actually shows pretty good. Yeah, that one shows pretty good. These are two 250s that are sitting this distance apart. You can see, so they're sitting maybe 40 millimeters apart, and it's two 250s, and it's got a back focal of 120 millimeters. And the idea with this is, as I said, I was, my 4x4 Graflex, well, it's a 3x4 Graflex RB SLR. I was looking for lenses for this. I don't have a long enough back focal distance this would interfere. I need to be about 150 millimeters. And so these lenses will not work with that camera, but it will work with another camera. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with these. But I just wanted to say, one of the things that when we started this podcast, and I'm going to go back to, I'm no longer holding up lenses. But when we started this podcast way back, however long time ago it was, one of the things that I wanted to be able to do was to make lenses. I wanted to be able to, build shutters and build lenses and, essentially do the whole thing. And this gets me a little bit further down. So first of all, total thanks to Eric Matthey. And he is at Eric Matthey. I'll have him in the show notes, but at Eric Matthey on, and that's M-A-E-R-I-C. Let me make sure. It's ERIKMATHY on Instagram. And he's worth looking into. He did a bunch of work with a 4x5 camera and some of these homemade lenses. And he was, Adobe did a documentary on him, apparently followed him around, did a documentary. You can hear that more on an episode of the Large Format Photography Podcast. And it's 2 full episodes, and it's worth the discussion, worth hearing that. Now, here's one of the things that I think is really interesting. When we had Nicole Small on our show, and that's got to be about a year ago, she mentioned him. And it's like, I said, noted him down, and I looked him up, and I never followed him on Instagram. I looked up what he was doing, and it's one of those things that in passing, I didn't really, I heard about it, and I heard the lenses, and it's like I lost it on my, it left my front brain. But she mentioned him, and she mentioned his dollar bill lenses, which I think are, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that she knew she was interested in talking about him back then and what he was doing with these lenses. So this is getting me further down the path of actually building a fully homemade camera. Now, my next thing is a shutter. And actually, if you look on, I'm gonna talk about Eric again. If you look on his Instagram over the last several weeks, he is working with a Guillotine shutter that is it's gravity operated, drop in front of the lens, and it's a just perfect Guillotine shutter system. So it is, that's 2 parts of what my goal is. Now, I built a camera body. I have the Esquilax, which is that 4x10 view camera. And I have other camera bodies, of course. I can certainly put one of these cameras on a Kraken or one of my other, here's the Kraken 645. The different versions of the Kraken, I can do that, but I'm getting closer to this goal of building a fully functional, pretty highly featured camera. So I'm really excited about that. Let me talk a little bit about these lenses. Each one of these lenses, these lens elements, and the formula, I don't know if they only work with achromats, but that was what Eric talked about. But when you search these, when you search for lenses on Surplus Shed, you can search by type, and achromat is one of the types that you can search via. And once again, I think that it's worth looking for. Do you guys, are you guys excited about possibly going down this path too? Or are you going to just...
I'm halfway down that path in a project that's waiting on the laser cutter, but...
you said that on your something project and I talked over you.
Yeah, I mean, I have it in 2 shelved projects. I have a drawer full of achromat lenses for building rapid rectilinears and such. But
is that what these things are called, rapid rectilinears, if they're too?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch of different names, but like there's names for different lens formula. So an achromat is two elements back to back that correct a bunch of chromatic aberration, right? And you put two of them together and they correct a lot of other aberrations. And actually, I would say like the dual achromat or rapid rectilinear is probably like one of the first reasonable lens designs. So the interesting thing about it is because it takes advantage of symmetry rather than asymmetrical lens design, which requires a ton of math and really a computer, you can build some pretty reasonable rapid rectilinears with off-the-shelf parts because you just need two of something, whatever they are, and the math is pretty simple rather than building something like a planar, which is semi-symmetrical, but you need a lot of different matched elements that you might not be able to get off the shelf.
And I think the way to describe why that works is that a symmetrical lens basically takes the light, does something to it, and then you run it through its copy, and that undoes the same things that you just did and kind of brings it back into the realm of normalcy. And that's obviously an oversimplification, but I think that's sort of the key is that whatever you did to the thing with the first lens, you can undo with the second one without, as you say, having to do a ton of math. When I did my oversimplified description, is there like a really big problem with that, or isn't that part of what's going on with a symmetrical?
Yeah, no, I mean, like you have nailed it, but with language that's not like if you it is
the language was too imprecise. Sure.
Yes yeah. that it wasn't a skeptical face. Like you are exactly right about undoing a lot of the aberrations of the first lens with the second lens, but you're not exactly undoing what you did on the first lens. Otherwise you would be defocusing. I have no problem with your explanation other than it's imprecise.
Right. So it's a correction rather than, it's specifically that it's the corrective measures that you're doing symmetrically. Right?
Yeah. And there are better asymmetric ways, obviously, to correct for, coma and barrel distortion, yada, yada. But it's the simplest one to do and possibly the only one to be able to do with off-the-shelf parts.
Right. And you get a consistent kind of effect no matter which set of lenses you're playing with. So it's easier to predict what's going to happen. Yeah.
Symmetry is always your friend when you don't have MATLAB or the, even if you do have MATLAB, the ability to produce those things that you can calculate.
Yeah. Yep. And asymmetrical creatures are pretty rare. Oh, here comes.
Oh, yeah. Grams. Okay. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, these are some lens formula elements that I have calculated. So here is actually the formula right there. And it's the focal length equals the focal length of lens 1 times the focal length of lens 2 divided by the focal length of lens 1 plus the focal length of lens 2 minus the distance between the two elements. So that's the focal length. And I'm just talking through it for if you're driving, don't jot it down, please. The back focal length, which is the distance from the back lens to your point of focus, is the front element. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, the back element, the focal length of the back element times the distance between the two minus the front element divided by the distance between the two minus the front element plus the back element. So yeah, this is a formula. But anyway, so I plugged it in.
This is a very complex formula that does not, I mean, it's a more general case than the symmetrical version. But I see like lens formula 1 here. Right,
yeah. And I've got Lens Formula One, and I just did different ones all over the place.
So, Graham, I find it very disturbing that your measurements are taken out to 8 decimal places.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Excel, because I'm certainly, if I put them 10 millimeters apart, they're probably 9.7 millimeters apart.
Got to set those significant figures, baby.
Yeah. So let's take a look at this one over here. Okay. So I'm just, for those of you listening, it has 3 places that I can enter stuff, which is the focal length of the front lens, focal length of the back lens, and the separation between the two. And then the formula calculates 2 things. It calculates the focal length and the distance that lens pair has to be.
Okay. I have I don't know, correction, but a nit to pick with you in this thing is you call it back focal length, which I texted you about before I lost the thread on this. What that really is flange focal distance, or infinity flange focal distance?
It's not. And here's the reason why.
It's because the flange could be anywhere in the middle of the lens.
You're building this. A flange is a very specific place on very specific. Okay, so think of the Mir 3. Am I right? The Mir 3 35 millimeter Russian.
Right. I mean, you could put the flange anywhere along it, but back focal length is a terrible term.
Okay, so it is the distance from the back of the back lens to the recording media.
Right. I would call that infinity flange distance, although that's not what you would get in a large format lens.
There's no flange on my paper tube, right? Okay. So here, let me talk about the Mir 3 again. The Mir 3, for those of you who are, and Nick is holding one up. It is a lens that has a back element that enters the body of the camera, and sits almost at the sensor, almost at the film plane. And
yeah, I mean, to be fair, like almost no lens has the flange co-located with the rear element. Like either it's in front or it's behind. I get it, but the back focal length is it bothers me and confused me. Can we come up with a new name for it?
Okay. Yes. The Ethan measurement is the distance from the back lens. So it is. We're going to measure it in Ethans. You are how many centimeters tall?
Like 190, maybe.
190. So this is 40. So 190 divided by 40. So it's a point. It is a 0.021 or something like that. Ethan measurement. Okay, so let's get back to the way the formula works, and you can call it whatever you want. The back focal length is actually, I have come up with, the back focal length is actually something that you will find quite often in pre-World War II lens information. Okay, so you will actually find that quite often. It is not a totally made up measurement or status. So I've found it when I was doing all of the lens database for the Kraken. One of the things I had to figure out was how far back, so sometimes you'll see that listed as back focal length.
So what confused me about it is often on like a compound lens in physics, we would calculate not only like, so if you have, the object, the lens, and the plane, right? The focal length is this distance between the lens or the compound lens and the film plane, and often you will calculate a back focal point this way if you were to project parallel light rays through.
So
backwards.
You're using that term for another measurement, and
not exactly that term, but a very similar term.
Okay.
It confused me for like an hour staring at it before I.
Okay. So this, we could do a stand-in for flange focal distance, but the flange doesn't occur until you build the barrel.
Sure.
And we're just talking about the lens elements.
Yep.
So, okay. So here, let me put this in. So in this case that I am looking at in the screen share.
Let me stop you to clarify
Yeah.
one more thing. I assume these look like thin lens approximation formulas to me, which takes the thickness of the lens to be 0, which now we're talking about, like, these measurements are at the center of the lens. So like if you have a biconvex lens, we're talking about like the measurement starting from the actual center. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that you are correct on that. But let me introduce you to my little friend. Okay, so
are you gonna pull out a gun now?
No, this is my little friend.
I'm wearing the gun hat.
This is a stack of helicals and helicoids. Okay, so these are going to be your friend, because what you're going to do is you're going to mount this at some point, and you're going to roll that thing back and forth until you find exactly what that infinity focus is. This is a big one. This is an M65, and it doesn't even have it written on there, but it's like a 25 to 55. So you're going to have to figure that out at some point. It doesn't matter, because I'm not building a lens to put on my Fuji. I'm building, although I could, in fact,
you're building a camera to put on your lens.
I'm building a camera lens system, and I will have built a flange for this. And then I will have measured the distance, and then that's where I'm going to put all of that. So can you quit quibbling and just let me show my little toy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Hey, Nick, your video's out.
So,
let's continue.
Okay. Do you guys see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. So if you had a 100mm front lens and a 66mm back lens, you separated those lenses by 20mm, you would get a 45mm focal length, and the lenses would have to stand off 36mm from the sensor, film, etc. But this is the thing that I've been playing around with, because I had to kind of figure it out. So if I change that 20 to 10, this goes 2mm up, and that goes 3mm down. Here, I'm going to take it back to 20. Okay. So, and what I said, okay, so the focal length, when I reduced the distance by half from 20mm to 10mm, the focal length of that lens went from 45 to 43. The back focal length went from 36 to 34. So if I do 40, predict what that's going to be, Ethan.
Dude, man, you need ZMAX.
I don't need ZMAX, because this is ballparking. This is ballparking.
Okay, but these tell you nothing about the qualities of that lens. So like now we're getting away from all sorts of symmetries, and so like, you know, this tells you where to park the elements to get some sort of image in the center.
Yeah.
But you are allowing yourself too many degrees of we need precision here.
Ethan, yeah. I am very interested to hear what it is that this does not do, but hold on, let me go through the formula.
Okay.
And then tell me what is. So if I went from 20 to 10, and the focal length goes down by 3, and the back focal length goes down by 2, if I go from 20 to 40, I would say the focal length should go up by 3, so that should be a 48, and the back focal length should go up by 2, that should be a 38. And it's not, it goes the other direction. Okay, so now this is a 52mm lens, and it has a back focal length of 31. So what I was trying to say is there's some oscillation, and that's what this calculator is really good at figuring. So if you want to play along at home with this system, we go to, and I'm surplus shed. Okay, we go to surplusshed.com. I am going to do a new screen share. So here is my formula set. I'm going to do lens finder on surplus shed. I'm going to choose an achromat. I'm not going to worry about the diameter, but the bigger diameter.
Wait, Graham, can you just for a quick second pull up your formulas again?
Yeah, I will in just a second. But the focal length, I'm going to, actually, let's do it by diameter. I'm going to just sort by diameter because you want a big lens. So ascending or descending, we want the big ones first. So I'm going to find lenses. Now, the problem is that this does alphabetical numeral sorting. So we start with 9.9 and 8s, and then once we get over 10, we get into the size that we want. So here's a 42 millimeter lens that has a 42 millimeter diameter lens that has 145 millimeter focal length. So let's put that in both. So it's 145 and 145. So you can get an 80 millimeter lens with a 60 millimeter back focal. And Ethan, we'll get back to it.
Well, I just checked your math and your spreadsheet is wrong.
Okay, well, fuck you then. So because I asked you to check that
I know.
a month ago. But okay, so this is a 145, and then I changed it to 10, and now it's a 75 millimeter lens. And this, what I'm changing is just the lens separation. So if I make it 100 millimeters across, it's 100 millimeters difference. It's 110 millimeter lens. So you can, I don't think that this is actually wrong. I think that this is right because I've empirically checked it with actual lenses using the formula. In fact, these are my lenses right here. So the one that I just showed is a 138, 10 millimeters across. It's got a focal length of about 71, and it's got a back flange focal distance of 66. Now, I can't really check the focal length, but I can check the back focal length, and that's what I have in my hand right here. And so it does check out whether my math is right or wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
well, at least the back focal length that you're talking about, the distance from the rear element to the plane of focus, that is accurate. Since you can't check focal length, you don't know if that's exactly right. But you could get an idea.
I mean, right. And focal length is angle of view, and until I put it on a frame, that angle of view has no meaning, right?
Yeah, it also tells you where your infinity focus is going to be with just a straightforward lens. Yeah.
No, where infinity focus is from the back focal length or the flange focal distance or whatever, or the Ethan mark, or the Ethan distance. So,
okay. So I just want to clear up something: is that there is no oscillation in the focal length dependent upon the increase of the distance between the lenses. As the lenses get further and further apart, the focal length always gets longer and longer. Now that back focal length could oscillate, but that's like almost a not important measurement, right? Because
I was talking about the back. I was talking about the back focal length oscillating.
I got you. Okay.
I was not talking about the focal length oscillating, the back focal length oscillating. Because one of the things that I was trying to do when I first got this was figure out what pairing I could put on my, my 20th century Jeff Perry special,
Gotcha.
So I was trying to figure out this, because this has a shutter, and all I have to do is screw this thing off and stick a lens in and see if it'll work. And I I can get some focus on these.
So
I gotta pull that off the back.
What I think would be more useful here, I know it's been a long time since a lot of us have done like high school algebra, but what would be more useful? So what you have is like, you have focal length in terms of back focal length, but really you want back focal length in terms of everything else. Let's say no.
So in other words, if you
want everything else in terms of back focal length, right? So that you can make one a fixed.
Oh yeah, I want the formula to say I want to be able to type in back focal length and or the distance from the lens to the sensor.
Right, and that back focal length, we'll call it that, is important on this because your element can't stick back further than a certain distance because it hits the mirror, correct?
Right. Yeah, it hits the mirror on that particular lens. So that's, God, feels like I'm cross-threading that. I'll put that in a little bit later. So that's what we're trying to, but anyway, so I have a formula that figures out some of that information. Mm-hmm. So I think I think that there's something valuable here. And I think that there is something that will be, that other people can use to help figure out what we're doing. So Ethan, here's the deal. I sent you that spreadsheet. If you can get it so that I can type in what focal length I need, and then I can mess with the other numbers, then that would help me out a lot. But anyway, so that's how I was making, I just bought 3 sets of lenses, and 3 sets of lens elements just to figure out what the hell I was doing. And this has gotten me so much further than anything I've ever done before like this. And I'm super excited about that. Even though Ethan has shot me the hell down.
No, I mean, I think you're on the right track. You've allowed yourself already too many degrees of freedom to take advantage fully of symmetries, and you're playing around with those variables in a way that you're reintroducing a lot of the lens aberrations that, normally if we're trying to go up the fidelity curve here, you would not want to reintroduce. But without going too far into it, I think I'm going to take this and simplify it for some symmetries, which drops out a lot of the issues in the equation. And I'm going to give you back focal length in terms of focal length, or focal length in terms of back focal length, not being the total focal length of the lens, but the focal length of each one of symmetrical elements. I think 1-to-1 variables makes this extremely easy, and also will do the best given a pair of achromats at eliminating aberrations.
I'm all for that. What I part of the deal is I bought these things as experimentation, and I am perfectly happy putting together a camera and a lens package that's all done from empirical observation for this. Now, the idea is we want to be able to predict, and we want quality results, and anything you can help me with on that, I'm more than thankful for. So that's the, so we'll have to see how this goes. And we'll have to see, what I can build and what I can't build. But to me, I'm torqued. I'm excited about this. So that's what I've got.
I'm also excited about this. I think you're going down the right track. I don't love that you're about to expose a project that I've been working on to the masses to compete with me, but also in spirit, I love it and will help.
Yay! Yeah, but you see, I won't go on 800 podcasts to support it. So, you know, it's just
We'll
our little secret.
Yeah, that's a shh.
Yeah,
I mean, all of this is available.
Yeah, exactly.
It was invented in the 1800s.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
By John Henry Dallmeyer.
Okay. Oh, you mean the achromat is? Is that what you were saying?
No, the achromat is much older. The achromat's like a really standard telescope lens, which is why it's available to a lot of people.
So this is like 14th century technology.
No, I think. When was the first von Leeuwenhoek glass droplet microscope? Is the first glass lens technology, I think. But
that's in that 17th century, maybe 18th. I think it's pretty old. 18th century.
My lens history is not good, but they've had achromats for a long time. 1866 is when they had the rapid rectilinear or the planet.
So playing with cameras that have shutters, I've been playing with two speed graphics, one that I turned into a bayonet mount camera and the other one that I left intact to play with lenses that don't have shutters. And this kind of become the thing I'm focused on for a while. And this particular camera is a 3.4 speed graphic, so it's the in-between size that you can't really find much film for anymore.
It's the adolescent speed graphic,
right? But it's a cool camera because it's much more compact than the big 4x5, but it has a long bellows throw and a reasonably large lens board that you can attach a pretty big lens to. And I've been playing with old medium format lenses and barrel lenses and things that you can get cheaply but have really interesting optical characteristics. And I wanted to shoot on medium format film. So I sent away to 20th Century Camera for this plastic 3D printed 4x5 back that screws right onto a 3x4 camera. And Graham has something similar on his reflex.
Yeah, we got those from
Graflex.
Yeah, we got those from
20th Century Camera. Yeah.
Jeff Perry?
When he sent it to me, when Jeff Perry sent me this, there was a surprise in the package. There was a hand grip designed to bolt right onto the side of a crown graphic or a speed graphic. However, his was based on the older style cameras, which he had. He didn't have a pacemaker crown graphic, which are kind of the pinnacle of the Graflex line, and they have certain advantages. And they have slightly different layout. And so I gave him some feedback, and he then made this one that fits perfectly on either 3x4 or 4x5 crown and speed graphics. It's got a clever system that makes you only need one bolt on the side tripod mount, and it fits really well. It has a cold shoe built in. It has a trigger, place to put a cable release in it. It's got a strap that's adjustable. It's a very, very handy, useful thing that a lot of people may want to use on these cameras. Even if you're using these cameras on a tripod, it's handy to have a good solid way to grab it and adjust it, when you're working your ball mount or whatever on the tripod.
Okay. And we should
the other thing about
is in pro red.
Oh yes. It's definitely more pro.
It's more
in
pro.
red. Yeah. The first one was black. I like the red one. So it's a very handy thing that I'm glad to have. It's kind of nice that it has a flash shoe on it, because I used to like to use viewfinders on these cameras. So that leaves the middle of the camera free for a viewfinder. Anyway, it's a super handy thing. The other change in this design is that this 4x5 back is offset to center roll film right on the middle of the lens. So it means that if I'm using, say, a lens designed for 6x6 film, it'll take, you know, advantage of every bit of the image circle. So that gives me the chance to start using lenses that don't have shutters. And I'm making various special custom lens boards for the camera. Here's an example of one which has a Mamiya 645 extension ring just glued into a standard lens board for this camera with epoxy putty. But I also shaped the cut I made in the aluminum so that it locks onto the flanges of the bayonet mount on the Mamiya 645 extension ring, which makes it quite a strong connection. Now, with this particular camera, I can't hit infinity focus with Mamiya 645 lenses. Their flange back distance is too short, but it is an incredible...
flange back or is
flange,
it the
flange back?
distance?
Yeah, okay. No, flange back. The flange being the lens board, okay? But the advantage of that, what's great about using those lenses on this camera is it's like it's a macro machine. The 12-inch bellows throw on it is just like having a macro bellows.
What's the minimum? What's the minimum flange on that?
On this particular camera, I think it's right around 60 millimeters. So it's theoretically going to work, but because the way the lenses mount on the lens board, they get a little too far away. It doesn't quite get infinity focus with those. It's fine for, you know, the longer flange back distances like Kiev 88 mount. And I'm making a lens board for that. And it's fine for all but the shortest of medium format system camera lenses. And also for barrel lenses, I think you can start right around 60 or 70 millimeters with those, depending on how they mount on the board. Anyway, that's plenty for the size of film I'm using. It's going to be mostly normal lenses and longer when you get to barrel lenses, but for system lenses, you can use really wide angle lenses, and that's convenient. It's something I'm going to really have fun playing with. And again,
have you taken out and shot it yet?
Oh yeah, I have, and I've gotten some film back, but most of my experimental film still needs to be developed. And I haven't used it with the new back, which is going to change. You know, it's going to open up more possibilities. And then the Speed Baby is set up perfect for the Mamiya 645 lenses. So I already have essentially the same thing for that. Now this will also take 4x5 sheet film, and it will only expose a 3-inch by 4-inch or 3¼ by 4¼ inch piece of that, but that's still a really good size negative. And there are quite a few emulsions available in 4x5, whereas there's only 1 or 2 available in 3x4. So, you know, you waste a little bit of film, but you can shoot a pretty good sized negative. So I'm going to try some of this 4x5 Velvia that I have with some of these kind of mid-century system lenses, especially the Russian ones, which I really like playing with. So it's basically a test bed and experimental camera. It's handy to have the bellows, because you can just throw something on it and immediately find, you know, put it in focus and see what it does. Look at the image circle. That's another thing that's nice about putting a big ground glass on it, is that you can see more of what the lens does immediately. So that's useful.
All right. So what direction are you going with this? Are you planning any other mods or anything? You're not going to hack this one apart like you did with the babies, right?
Right. This one I'm going to keep exactly as it is.
Okay.
The one that the little Speed Baby or Baby Speed graphic that you sent me, I am going to probably modify, but I'm still playing with a couple different ideas to see what that does. But another thing that kind of this led me to was to start looking at very old barrel lenses. So there are lenses off very old cameras that have no shutter, or had a very primitive shutter in the original version. And some of them are really, really interesting optics and nothing I could play with before. So that's another thing that I'm getting into. And the other camera that I have that has a built-in shutter is the digital camera. And the shift stitching device lets you use a pretty big piece of the image circle. And so all these same lenses are going on that system as well. So that's another way to use these older lenses. that's kind of what I've been planning for my next, my next round of experiments, and all the pieces are finally in place. I wanted to point out, if you're messing with your adjustable lenses with a M65 helical, you can get an adapter and put those right on your Fuji if you want to. That RAF camera out of Moscow makes they make a really well machined aluminum Fuji to well, actually, the one I have is I have a Mamiya 645 to M65 piece of metal that they sent, which I then put on a Fuji to Mamiya 645 adapter. So you can lock these different things together and start using a few lenses on a zillion different cameras. It's kind of the opposite. Most people have one camera and a bunch of lenses, and I'm kind of going the other way and have a limited selection of lenses and put them on the largest number of possible different kinds of cameras. So it's sort of an upside down system, but I like it.
Okay. Let's see what we got. Nope. Oh, you can barely get an image. Oh yeah, there we go. There's my neck. I'm free lensing with the with that on there. Okay. I should have done that in my section. But somewhere out there, there's a focal. See, look at that. Look at that. Oh, I look like Don Cherry. Okay, so Canadians and hockey fans will get that joke. Nobody wants to look like Don Cherry. Ethan, do you have any comments on Nick's, or are you going to just sit there and do math all day?
Yeah, I was doing some math, but I was also listening. No, I mean, that all sounds like a reasonable set of things to do. I also, I liked what Nick said about using his camera as a test bed. I also use a Speed Graphic or a Crown Graphic, actually, almost exclusively as a test bed when somebody sends me a lens or I get a new lens. Yeah.
All right.
So the project that I've got boiling that's different than this is I suddenly had an idea for making a large medium format panoramic camera. So I've been struggling with my usual method of finding old parts and making some sort of Frankenstein creation. I've just been struggling with how to make a 120 panoramic camera that was super convenient. And it dawned on me that the mechanism I'm looking for exists on those Calumet roll film backs that are designed to slip underneath a spring back. And so what they do in order to achieve that is they put the entire advanced mechanism out to the side, and then there's a long film gate which slips behind the ground glass of a spring back camera. And there's just a simple roller at the opposite side, and the film goes from the mechanism around the roller, across the film gate, and back into the take-up reel. And what it does is that it means that if you wanted to modify it and make it cover a much wider film gate, all you have to do essentially is build a light tight box and put that little roller over at the far side of it. What's that?
I have a prototype of this. The problem is the leader length, right? And so as you go past 6x12, you start wasting a ton of film.
You do waste film. So what I was wondering about was adding an extra leader to it.
And not only do you waste film, adding a leader is clever, but not only do you waste film, you have to start loading in a dark bag. And
no, not this version, because I want to replace the film holder with my own. Basically, all I'm using is the mechanism.
Right, but I'm saying is like when you start having to pull the reel. So I have one of these that I 3D printed about 2 years ago that it never quite worked. I might pick it up again, I might not. But like past 6x12, what happens is like you have to pull so much film off of the original roll to come out and back that past 6x12, like you're exposing some of the film just to daylight, and you don't have enough. Like you have to be in really subdued light or probably a dark bag just to load the thing without.
But if I can add a blank paper that will
I thought about this too.
Pull it through.
Then the problem with adding a blank paper is now when
you need a bigger roller.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, but that's not totally out of the realm of possibility.
No, it is not.
Yeah, if you make it a very thin puller and make your spools a little bit bigger. I mean, it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's it's the take-up spool, so that's in your control. You would have to have a non-standard take-up spool. Anyway, it's something I want to play with, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I like the idea of something like 6x14, and this mechanism is a 7 centimeter, so all you have to do is advance twice to get a 14 centimeter long piece of film in front of a film gate. And even if it does waste a shot, it's still something that would be interesting. So I don't know. I guess a red window version would be less wasteful.
There have been a lot of people who've been asking lately, hitting me up on Instagram and stuff like that about the zine. I am spearheading the Homemade Camera Zine 2020. I'm a little bit behind. First of all, we did extend the deadline to the end of August. So that was the final deadline. We have enough for a 64-page zine. I am working on putting all that material together. I'm not very far into it. You would think that reducing my commute by 3 hours by teaching from home would give me tons and tons and tons of more time. But okay. So the home teaching COVID situation's not absolutely wonderful, but so I'm a little bit behind, but I hope to catch up in the next month. So the plan at this point, we will have more on this. This has not been finally decided. The plan on this point is that the zine will be available from an on-demand printer. We send you to the printer, you order it, they print it, they send it to you. And that's the way it will work. That is one of the options. The other one is go through Mixam, and God, Mixam really needs to do an on-demand. But we go through Mixam, and I fulfill them.
You will regret that.
Well, not only that, but it will get to you a lot quicker if we do this on-demand thing.
And also it'll be way, way, way cheaper for international customers, right?
Yes,
because then it doesn't have to go ship to you. And then like last year, our UK customers or members like wound up paying more for shipping than the actual zine cost. It was, it was expensive to them, and I think I wound up losing like $40 when all was said and done. Yeah. I think on demand will make it cheaper for everybody, and maybe slightly more expensive for Americans. But
that's how Ethan does a fundraiser, 40 in the hole. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's coming along. That is coming along in the future. I also have another announcement, and this is kind of, maybe this is just something for me to talk about, having to do with darkroom. I built out a darkroom. I got from my neighbor who lives across the street. His brother had in storage from about 1995, a big 4x5 Omega enlarger, and another smaller enlarger, and tons of stuff. And I spent, 6 months working in the darkroom and doing darkroom stuff and doing things like direct positive, black and white on paper stuff. And I've come to the conclusion that I should have remembered I'm not good at the darkroom. And it turned out to be no, it's not baloney. I'm a crap darkroom printer. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I don't think I have the patience for the darkroom. I don't have the patience for spending an afternoon to get one print.
Dude, you are so off-brand right now.
Yeah, no, I'm not off-brand. I'm directly in what I know about myself. So, so the whole thing is, if you live in Northeast Florida, and I'm going to define it, Jacksonville to Ocala and St. Augustine or Daytona to Gainesville. That's the space. I will be giving away a 4x5 enlarger. So email me, Graham@HomemadeCamera. Graham@HomemadeCamera.
What a nice guy.
Graham@HomemadeCamera. It's going to come with some other stuff. It's not going to be a full complete dark room. I'm going to keep some of the trays, some of the other things, because I still have X-ray film to develop, and Trey developing X-ray films, especially
Graham
4x10 X-ray film. It's much easier. Yeah.
So you had offered to ship me some RA4 chemistry.
Yeah.
But seeing as I'm going to put a laser right here, I would like you to hang on to that chemistry so that I can send you some things in the coming months that you probably don't want.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Right. We'll pile that all together. And yeah, sure. Yeah, not a problem. We can do that. I bought RA4 chemistry to do reverse color prints, like Monsignor Ethan Moses. And who's our guy in England who does that? He's been on our show.
Brendan Barry.
And other people have gotten into that. I bought that. I bought a kit, and it's going to probably cost me as much to ship it anywhere as I originally paid for it with their, bulk shipping that prices that they can do. So I think I'm going to do a few things. I just sold a Leica CL and mailed that off today. I think that might go into a large format printer, or I might put that into something else. So, but I don't know, maybe it'll be buying lens elements so I can figure out the back focal distance, Ethan. Back focal length. There we go. So anyway, I also, so we're going to also start the shout outs, I think, at this point. Eric Mathy, at Eric Mathy, ERIKMATHY. I have a link to his Instagram and his in the show notes. I also have the formula that he gave me, even though Ethan thinks it's a stupid ass formula.
No, I don't think it's a stupid ass formula. I think it's the more complicated, generalized formula that makes things harder for you and also possibly harder to get.
So also in the show notes will be the revised Ethan formula that he's going to provide us all. That's going to be a lot easier. So, and if you looked at, you guys probably didn't see his face, those of you who are watching on YouTube, but his face just dropped like, oh crap. Now I've talked myself into doing something. So we'll see whether or not we have an alternative one. So, Ethan, do you have any shout outs? Anything?
Yeah, shout out to the Classic Lenses podcast for sending me this Make Bokake Great Again hat, which I cannot wear outside. And my girlfriend said to me that she knows it is a anti-Trump joke, but she still finds it repugnant, and so do I. So this will be the only time I wear this hat, but I really enjoy supporting the Classic Lenses podcast.
We should note that we are recording this October, is it the 29th? October 20th? October 30th. Tomorrow is Halloween, which means that, you might think Halloween's the scariest night of the year, but November 2nd will most likely be the scariest night of the year in the US. This year, which is election day, or the last day to cast a vote. Who knows when we're going to know?
Isn't that November 3rd?
I'm depressing myself.
The exorcism is November 3rd.
Whatever, Tuesday. The Tuesday. See, I'm already putting it out of my brain. So Nick, do you have any shout outs? Anything that you want to
Well, I
about?
definitely want to, I want to make a shout out to Jeff Perry, 20th
Yeah.
Century Camera, who
Me
has
too.
made
Thanks,
these
Jeff.
really beautifully made 3D printed parts for improving and beefing up your Graflex cameras, which I'm really enjoying working with. So that's a great source, and he does really beautiful work.
Not only
Thanks,
that,
Jeff.
let me go a little bit further into that. I just spent a little bit of time in the backwoods of North Carolina to get into a different mindset from my normal Florida existence. And oh my God, this year the leaves were incredible. Okay, so you can check my Instagram for that. But I took my Graflex RB camera, complete with the 20th century modified 4x4 back from from my 3x4 camera. It worked wonderfully. I did it took a little tiny bit of getting used to. There are certain ways you have to set the camera down to not interfere with the back. But once I figured that out, oh my God, this is wonderful. I ended up shooting 22 film holders. 11 film, 22 film holders, 44, maybe 11 film holders. And I don't know. I have a bunch of film to develop. I'm really excited to see how it comes out. A 4x3 are revolving, RB camera. These are SLRs. These are big SLRs. It's useless with the 3x4 back, but with the 4x5 back on from 20th century camera, oh my God, this might be one of my favorite cameras ever. It is certainly the second easiest way to shoot 4x5 after the Cameradactyl OG. Okay, so but it's great.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for the plug. I wanted to note that I also talked to Jeff Perry, like when he put out those new backs. I think it was really, really clever. And it's the type of like clever engineering that like it's such a simple and slick solution. You assume that somebody just spent 5 minutes making it. But it's kind of like, the other day I was working on this drive coupler for a scanner that I'm working on. And I drew a drive coupler in 20 minutes. Like I knew it would work. And then I made a note to myself, like, this is going to be a pain to assemble and to adjust. And like, let me think about this. And then I spent 2 days kind of staring at the wall, like, thinking about it. And 2 days later, I drew a drive coupler that was, half as many pieces and much simpler for the user and much better to assemble. And like, you look at that from a design standpoint and you think, man, this guy spent 5 minutes doing it, which I did, but I spent, 20 minutes 2 days before, and then the interim 2 days thinking about how to simplify and make something slick. And I think Jeff, really, really impressed me with this next set of backs that he's releasing or has released.
And by the way, go ahead. Sorry.
He's just taken something that worked well and was like already a good product, but like he sat down and thought about it and sold, hundreds of them. And at some point they just like got simpler and could do, twice as many things. Yeah. And it was really impressive. So also I would like to shout out Jeff Perry for that exact same thing, even though I don't have one because I don't shoot with those cameras.
It's the Whistler principle. And Nick, you probably know about the Whistler principle. Whistler, the painter, the Whistler's mother guy. He painted a portrait of the wife of some New York social magnate, whoever it was. He walks in, looks at her for 10 or 15 minutes or something like it. It was an incredibly short period of time. Goes off and puts together a portrait. And, and he charges, I don't know, $4,000 or something in 1920. The guy says, how can you charge that much for this, for me, for this portrait? You only spent, 3 hours doing it, and sued him. And so it goes into, and Whistler's defense was, you are paying for the 3 hours plus my 35 years of experience. and that's what that is. Yeah, it takes 10 minutes to do it. You know, I mean, it's the classic, you know, the Beatles know 3 chords and, you know, and we know 4, so we're better than the Beatles. No, you didn't do with those 3 chords what the Beatles did. It's that kind of principle. So yeah, my kid could have painted that. Okay. Let's see. Nick, do you have shout outs? Have we asked you already? No. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my shout out to Jeff Perry.
That's right.
And kind of, I mean, that's all I have this week. There's more to talk about.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our, this is our November 8th show. Our November 21st and our December 7th shows may or may not happen. We're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to try to record a couple of shows and get them in. But if you don't hear from us for a month, well, that would be, I guess, a month and a half until December 21st. Don't panic. We're still here. We're all 3 in time crunches. And so, you know, that's part of the deal is I'm going to put some of that time into the zine. I want to do some stuff with these lenses. Ethan has a laser beam coming in. Nick is
I also have 100 mongooses to build.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's that. Mongooses.
Greek, not Latin, or Latin, not Greek. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. Yeah. You see, I don't even know. So what's the next rat-based rodent that you're gonna name something after? Are we gonna get like a beaver or a chipmunk? I want the chipmunk.
Stay tuned to find out.
Okay, there we go. We want to thank Robbie Cribbs from Soundtrap Studios. He composed our theme music, lets us use it every week. Thank you very much, Robbie. Soundtrapstudios.com. Don't confuse it with the app. There's also something else there. But if you go to soundtrapstudios.com, you'll find Robbie. Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie. Thanks, Robbie. along, found a, you know, a ghost town. So it's the same idea. You need a certain number of germs to infect a continent, and
right,
yeah,
right. And we did it with smallpox.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, and the bitchin handle, is that a 20th century handle?
Yeah,
or is that a...
yeah. It was a surprise thing he sent me, and then I sort of critiqued it, and he refined it, and this is the final version.
Jeff has a dog that looks like Trudy. Trudy's a pit bull lab mix. His dog Alex, I'm looking at the wrong camera. I need to turn my other camera so I don't look at it. So Alex is a Chihuahua pit bull mix.
Nice. Wow.
So, what the hell? Oh my God. I wiped out our end. I put the fucking end of that section in the wrong one. Fuck.
No idea about your...
Oh, fuck. Okay.